Hello and most welcome to H 1877 of the series. We are faster and faster approaching the 1900s here. It's pretty amazing. It's even more challenging to the thought to see that we are merely 100 away from 2000s. 2000 lectures. That must be some sort of world record. All categories. Last time we're looking at the first and the second person perspectives. It's a great helper to understand the difference between what is usually called explicit and implicit. A very crude simplification is to say that the first person mood, primitive language game, is equivalent of the implicit and the first person. The explicit being the explanations or similar things that can be given by an outsider, a third person, a him or a she. So in this manner, these differences get built up. If we go to page 148, if you please, Kalle. In the beginning there of the page, you see the very first paragraph. Go up a bit. But unfortunately, Wittgenstein does not explain why this is so. I hope my explanation above fills the bill. Another creature that has a bill is a duck. Might be a lucky circumstance or important coincidence. But once more, we have here the duck rabbit with a bill and, of course, the rabbit having a noose. Either you see the duck or you see the rabbit. This is similar to the rule for red that has been recurring so many times here. Where red is, we do not find green or any other color. That exclusiveness, I would say, is the color itself. This is how the color come to be. That was expanded. We look at length. A man is 2 meters. That means he will not be 3 meters. So although this can seem to be a bit odd, there is no singularity in the expression somebody is 2 meters tall. There is an exclusiveness. The negative is also pointed to. His former idea was that the propositions were independent of each other's, that they were all elementary propositions, so to say, and these were partly positive and partly negative. And Wittgenstein came later, as we know, to the understanding that this was wrong. So at least 2 times we have followed the rule before it's established properly, in the positive sense and in the negative sense, in the including sense and in the excluding sense. And I will now continue to read on where we left off in 1876. So when I set up the rule for the word red, I must have already followed it at least twice. Oh, thank you for the correction. But it was actually 1876. We ended with Lin, so this is the continuation. The same must be said of the following rule for 2 meters. This shows that one cannot follow a rule only once, and hence explains away the truth puzzle of the not one person once remark. Notice that in these passages, Wittgenstein also hints at his reason for making those grammatical remarks concerning red and 2 meters. He wants to show that an idea in his TLP is fundamentally wrong. It being that elementary propositions are independent of one another. Some relevant passages in TLP are as follows. Two point 061. Atomic facts are independent of one another. Two point 062. From the existence or non-existence of an atomic fact, we cannot infer the existence or non-existence of another. Four two one. The simplest proposition, the elementary proposition, asserts the existence of an atomic fact. Five point 152. Propositions which have no truth arguments in common with one another we call independent. Independent propositions, for instance, any two elementary propositions in the Tractarian theory of world and language. Atomic facts are independent of one another. They are presented by elementary propositions, which are also independent. The independence of elementary propositions plays a central role in Tractatus Logicus Philosophicus. But Wittgenstein later realizes that it is fundamentally wrong, in fact senseless, as the examples of red and 2 meter illustrate. This thinking of Wittgenstein is also recorded in his paper some remarks on the logical form, in which he writes, one shade of color cannot simultaneously have two different degrees of brightness or redness. A tone, not two different strengths, etc. And the important point here is that these remarks do not express an experience, but are in some sense tautologies. The mutual exclusion of unanalyzable statements of degree contradicts an opinion which was published by me several years ago, which necessitated that atomic propositions could not exclude one another. Here, Wittgenstein uses degree exclusion examples to show that elementary propositions cannot be independent of one another. This, I submit, is the solution to the motivation puzzle concerning the not one person once remark. According to this remark, following a rule cannot be independent. Naming is an instance of rule following. Since elementary propositions consist of names, they cannot be independent either. This is a thesis which can be obtained on the basis of the grammatical not one person once remark, and which everyone would agree to if he followed the investigation carefully. Thus, the Tractarian idea of the independence of elementary propositions turns out to be grammatically nonsensical. Since this idea is central to the picture theory put forward in Tractatus Logicus Philosophicus, the theory therefore collapses. So the motivation behind the not one person, once remark is to dissolve the Tractarian theory of language. 5.2. A new interpretation of the concepts of custom and practice. The last sentence of PI 199 says that rule following is a custom. This remark by Wittgenstein is puzzling too. Does everybody agree that rule following is a custom? Everybody would agree that a wardrobe is a piece of furniture and that running is an activity, and so on. But is rule following a custom? Few, I think, would know how to answer it. So this remark by Wittgenstein does not seem to be a grammatical one. So why does Wittgenstein make it then? I suggest that the key to the solution of this puzzle is in the italic form of customs in PI 199. Wittgenstein is not adopting the ordinary sense of the word, but is giving his own specific explanation. It is to be understood as, in a sense, to follow a rule, are customs. In the sense, in what sense then? In the sense that these acts cannot be performed only once. The notion of practice has the same nature as that of custom. Is rule following a practice? Hardly. Not in the ordinary sense of the word practice. It is not something that everyone would assent to. Yet, Wittgenstein does say explicitly in PI 202 that to follow a rule is a practice. Follow it. In the light of the above discussion, what Wittgenstein means is that to follow a rule is something which cannot happen just once, just as a practice. Actually, Wittgenstein treats practice and custom in the same way. In the remarks on the foundations of mathematics, he writes, in order to describe the phenomenon of language, one must describe a practice, not something that happens once, no matter of what kind. Compare this passage with PI 199. It is clear that for Wittgenstein, the notions of custom and practice play the same rule. They are both used to highlight the point that rule following cannot be a one-off thing, just as customs and practices. Six conclusions and discussions. In this paper, I presented a new interpretation of Wittgenstein's thoughts on rule following, customs, and practice. There are three main results. First, I show that the not one person once remark is a grammatical one on rule following, and that it describes a necessary condition rule, which specifies a condition which must be satisfied in order for the expression to follow a rule to have a sense. Everyone has to agree with this remark. Ouch. We have no option. A communitarian might insist that only a community can follow rules. An individualist might argue that the person in complete isolation can also do that. And the Cartesian philosopher might assert that one can set up rules through private ostension and follow them privately. But they must all admit that in order for the expression to follow a rule, to have sense, one cannot follow a rule only once. The second major result of this paper is that Wittgenstein's motivation behind the not one person, one's remark is to demolish the Tractarian theory of language. Thus, both the truth puzzle and the motivation puzzle are solved. The third result of this paper is that, according to my interpretation, Wittgenstein's remark that rule following is a custom or a practice becomes a grammatical one. This remark is a vivid way of highlighting the point that rule following is not one-off. It is functionally equivalent to the not one person, once remark. I think that could be an excellent spot for a pause. Remark. A remarkable pause at a remarkable place. 1877. I will now go to the quotes here. So we are getting more and more into the understanding of this difficult paper.
What was the last word?
Remark. On page 151. Second paragraph. Very good, yes. We can go to page 148. And we can go down to the after the sites from WVC. But what really did it for me was the 2-meter example. I think nothing would, for an untried mind, seem more independent than a remark. Oh, this is 2 meters. It doesn't seem to, this is how I felt, it doesn't seem to exclude anything. It's just as Wittgenstein in the Tractarian way would say, it's an atomic fact that this man is 2 meters tall. But slowly I realize 2 meters is interconnected with everything that it isn't. 1.99 meters, 1.98 meters, and so on. It is also deeply interconnected with the measuring rod. And that there at some instance was somebody using that measuring rod, measuring the tall guy up. It's a stunning 2 meter guy. And that gave him that size. So you see there is the rule following of the measuring device, the yardstick, the circumstances that the man stand tall, and so on, goes slowly to show to me and helps or eases my understanding that there's a bit more to it. 2 meters is not an atomic fact, just something stolen from the transcendental world of Platonic forms, taken down, and then it disappears. No, it's widely more complicated and complex. I think for us, it has been very helpful to have both the assistance of Italian physicist Carlo Rovelli. His quantum relation show that even the observation is interdependent. It's not only that the observation makes everything more interdependent. The observer himself is not cut out of the reality. So it's a beautiful web of rule followings, RFs, and first person takes on reality. We can transform them to call them implicit. It's a simplification, as I mentioned initially. Those taken together help to widen the understanding of the web of meaning, or the weave, maybe a weave. I think weave could be the word that makes the most, so to say, pictorial sense. To see it all as a weave of interconnectedness. Also very helpful was the article of Moore. He shows that in order to be in the world, you must literally enter into it. Retching, vomiting, It's the flow from the inside to the outside that binds us. It is the Norwegian coastline that spews its interior to the exterior of the rocks, and vice versa. Interpenetration. We also got an enormously important tip from that article with triangulation. Triangulation is the rule of the universe, according to Julian Barber. Triangulation was in David Moore's article, oddly enough. So that is the rule of the universe. The universe coming to understand itself. So no independence. And I think this is very great. Atomic facts can absolutely directly be compared to local reality. So it's fair to say that the earlier Tractarian Wittgenstein was more into the classical physics mistake, the Cartesian mistake, that facts could be independent of each other, and how they pointed was also independent of everything else in the world. Wittgenstein shows that simply doesn't make any sense. Could actually take the Moore article. Thank you for showing it. Let's see here. The ghostly voices of these warring Christ followers still echo faintly, triangulated with the no less spectral but also no less visceral voice of Babylon. Triangulation is the universe, but it is also how the universe is measured. Isn't that an odd coincidence? That Moore takes the word triangulate up in the article in this, I would say, odd circumstance. We go to page 149. You may. So if we go to, it's hard to show here. If we go down a bit here. Let's stop there. Remarks RLF. The mutual exclusion, the second RLF, of unanalyzable statements of degree contradicts an opinion which was published by me several years ago, and which necessitated that atomic propositions could not exclude one another. So one could say that Wittgenstein had yet not to understand the aletheia thing, negativity. So each atomic proposition contains some ingredients of positively stating something and some negatively stating something, making up this rather odd atomic statement. One could say that Wittgenstein catches himself trying to make a statement singular, and he feels deeply ashamed of that tendency. It's a subverting tendency. It's the whore of Babylon, so to speak, who also subverts. So we cannot see the truth of what is really happening. If we go down to this, I submit, go down a bit there, is the solution to the motivation puzzle concerning the not one person once remark. According to this remark, following a rule cannot be independent. Naming is an instance of rule following. So it's all in there. It's in the very action. The act of following a rule is likened to a custom, but it's much more. And it's a double take of both excluding in one act and then positively stating something, the thing pointed to be compared to the Augustinian ostensive definition. Kalle Lundahl, please join.
Thank you. So thanks to this paper by Francis Lin, Francis Y. Lin, we finally understand to a much higher degree Wittgenstein's remark. One cannot follow a rule once. So hooray for Francis Lin and to Hans, of course.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
And
as well.
As you observed, Hans, one of the keywords here was in this phrase that we went through last time or penultimate time. So for my calling the rows red to make sense, I must have applied red to other objects, especially negatively. So my calling the rows red cannot really be a one-off act. This would be true even if there were only one red object in the universe, and so forth. So also to contrast this, so let me also take the example with Mars that we had last time. I think this was repeating. Wittgenstein talks of a creature on Mars walking parallel to something like a signpost. If I on Mars observe a creature who looks at a signpost-like object and then walks parallel to it, I would not be justified to say that he's following it, even if I knew all about his occurrent feelings. but surely he must know whether he's following it. Not by introspection. One cannot follow a rule once. So this creature, let's say that this creature is instead a lion on Earth. This signpost object could be a traffic light.
Yeah, it could be traffic light.
A lion would not understand it. It would ignore the traffic post. It would pass through. The lion would ignore the traffic light. As we humans, we would ignore, like say, in trees in the forest. We would not, so to say, run at traffic at trees. We would only pass them. We would follow the path, and when we walk in a forest, we follow several rules simultaneously. This is the key word, simultaneously. So I can follow a path, but at the same time, I also follow the rule of not following the path.
Yeah.
And
yeah, exactly.
So
there is a negativity and a positivity simultaneously, so to speak.
More importantly, though, is the connection to the Nobel Prize in Physics of last year with the Quantum Physics 2022, which says that there is no local reality.
Yes,
why so?
This discovery of Alan S. Becht, Clauser, and Anton Zeilinger.
And so what would it mean? Because when I say that, I think that this and this flower is red. At the same time, I also say no to many other things in the universe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the fascinating stuff.
Or I say, this is the best rose in the whole universe. I could say like that. Or this is the most beautiful woman in the whole universe. And I'm also following a negative rule, and I say no to all of the women. The best example is perhaps the marriage act.
Yeah, I like that one.
Because in the same act, I wed you. At the same time, you say no to all of the women in the universe. So you are following. So therefore, marriage act is a good example of a very good rule, which is clear cut, to say no to all other women in the universe. And therefore, and it's also the marriage act is also an example of actually non-local reality, because you are something at the same time connected to all of the women in the universe.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, you got it quite in a nutshell there. Thank you. Lovely.
So it is thanks to Lin and his emphasis, for instance, on the word negatively. We have seen. I have to admit, I even wrote to you, Hans, a few days ago that I think that Wittgenstein's remark here, for once, is not in agreement with quantum physics.
Oh.
One cannot follow a rule once. How did I reason then a few days ago? How did I reason? So, how did I reason a few days ago? I don't even remember how I reasoned a few days. Sometimes it's good to remember one's mistakes. Let me see. Let me see. Because when you have the superposition, yes, now I know. So let's remember what Unger and his colleague Lee Smolin. They said that laws are not eternal. Laws are not eternal.
Exactly.
Even though most people think that universal laws are eternal. Therefore, I thought that laws, that is rules, always change. And that is actually the principle of quantum physics. Because every experience is new, so it's always a new rule. So therefore, I thought that contradicted this statement by Wittgenstein, because every new experiment is a new rule. He still does contradict in one way this rule, don't you think? But it's still because okay, when you are in a let's say okay, when you measure something, that is a one-time act, that is one-time rule, but at the same time you say no to all other options. Let's say that you open the box, the famous box with Schrödinger's cat. When you see, say, the cat is alive, then you at the same time say no to all other options.
Yeah.
Therefore, you also, in this case, a rule was the states of existence, so to say. Like you are at the same time saying no to other cat. You also say no to sleeping cat or whatever.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, that follows as well.
So it actually does, if you think through it. So we can be very grateful to Lin. It's a difficult paper, but it gave us the clue how to understand this. I think we could say now with good satisfaction that we have understood this rule. Don't you think, Hans? And we should say perhaps hooray to ourselves and to Francis Lin. Hooray, hooray.
Yeah, definitely. This is maybe the most difficult we read so far. It didn't look that way from the outset, but it's it's mighty complex. And you also see this is the result of 40, 50 years of development within Wittgenstein himself. And to get that one into one singular paper, why, it is just beyond belief.
So I think we should be happy and perhaps end there and feel satisfied with ourselves for today.
Yeah, definitely. And I think humor has been very good here. We're not finished with the paper, it's just a little bit left, but we had something like parrot smashing. And for me, the most astonishing has been that I realized that the Wittgensteinian pointing out of something is also negatively pointing out the whole rest of the world. It is, like Alan Aspect would say, a global reality. It is not local. When I point something out, a fact in the world, it is taken in everything in the world. Nothing is left outside. All is included. And it's good. It's a very good realization, because once you have this mistake of atomic facts, that would lead to determinism. It would lead to the Cartesian mistake of thinking that you have a private language. It is very interconnected in the misunderstandings as well. And they would progress. There will be more and more of them. So this is extremely healthy as well. It's a healthy realization that we are not excluded from neither inside nor outside, nor the local nor the global, so to speak.
And I could, yes, I could also. Until a few days ago, I thought also about the famous 10 commandments. Do not kill, etc. So, and how does it fit with the Wittgenstein's dictum? One cannot follow a rule once. It does, because every day when I don't kill my mother or my neighbor, I'm actually following a rule. But still, we don't have universal laws in Oh, so general laws in as Lise Moulin and Robert Anker said. So laws can change.
Oh yeah.
Although I don't know if we can say apply this to the Ten Commandments. How some commandments in the law of Moses we don't follow. For instance, stoning people who disobey the parents.
Oh yeah. No, thank God, no longer.
That we should. So laws do change, so to say. Some laws are perhaps more perennial than others, but some laws are more general. So it's good that we have, for instance, the so-called law of gravity. Otherwise,
Oh yeah, yeah.
But law of gravity is not unchanging.
It's not unchanging. It's the more we go into Wittgenstein, the more we understand that a statement that the classical laws of physics are permanent, unchangeable, is nonsensical. That actually are nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Okay, let's end with a hooray, hooray to Francis Lin and our.
Yeah, we
our
were really
progress.
grateful to him. It's about time I contact him. Yeah,
Good luck.
hooray
Good luck.
to
Good
him.
luck. Good luck. Great.
We'll do that. I say thank you very much for your comments, Kalle Lundahl. And thank you everyone for listening in. Have a very pleasant morning, day or night or evening, wherever you are. Bye-bye for now. And I will stop the recording there.